Yeah.
I'm thinking we're 24 minutes late.
Well, I was in the shower.
I was busy gaming.
Okay. There we go.
Alright, should I start over? Okay. In middle school, I played the marimba and the xylophone amongst other percussion instruments, and every single year I won most valuable percussionist, beating out Christian. And he glared at me when I won. Okay. Alright, should I do it like where you do this? And then it goes...
This is my friend Jules. We're about to go to France.
But you get the gist. You know what song I'm playing, right?
Yeah. In 2017, I left the United States for the very first time to go to Romania. People would ask me why my friends and I went to Romania, of all the places in the world. My response to that was generally, why does anybody do anything? Which I think is valid. But after thinking about it, Romania is a place not a lot of people think to go, and there's something that feels special about walking around on ground that few others in your life have trod upon. Also, I had to go kill Dracula. Romania was meant to be the first trip before I explored other parts of the world. But the combination of money, limited time off, and the novel coronavirus gunked up plans for a follow-up anytime thereafter. Before I knew it, 6 years had gone by and the most world traveling I'd done was a cross-country trip moving some people to Denver. Then, my friend Jules said there was a Joe Hisaishi concert happening in this place in France, and it was as good an excuse as any to go do France. Look at that. You heard of this place? You know where it is? Do you know who Joe Hisaishi is? Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. We'll talk about it later. Our journey will begin in Paris. We'll spend a few days there, Jules and I crashing in a hotel she found. Then on day 3, we'll take a day trip to the city of Lille. Then take a train down to Lyon for a few days. Then we'll head over to Aix-les-Bains for one night to meet up with our friend Kim, who's on a long Euro trip. And then we'll all go to Paris together for a few days. We will party, we will have fun, and above all, we will seek answers. Then we'll come home. Woo!
The thing is, I actually don't know why.
This is it. I'm just gonna do this. I have to collect B-roll.
The thing is, I don't know why my suitcase is heavy, so maybe later we'll do a little unpacking and we'll discover.
Oh my god, we'll do an unboxing. Yo, wait, I gotta do the flip. You heard it here first. Skip ahead 45 minutes to see the unboxing moment.
Of Jules' suitcase?
Of Jules' suitcase.
I have heavy shoes. I have my loafers
Here,
and
let's get going.
Yeah, let's.
A packing sticker looks suspicious.
Yeah. Well, these days, I think more people used to do stamp mode back in the day, but I love covering packages with stamps and like hoping that it gets to the person.
It shouldn't be.
Oh, scary. go to the airport, Will, and just freaking chill out.
I can't wait to chill. I can't wait to drink an airport
Terminal 2
beer.
is the big one, right?
It's the big one.
Okay, Terminal 2 is nice because there's a lot of shit to do.
We have to ease into island time via RDU, via a $25 beer.
Yeah, get an expensive drink. You should play the piano that's by the Starbucks.
There's a piano. I can play the half of my beach house song for my little kid.
Oh, hell yeah. I got so many micro SDs.
Qu'on y croit ou pas, il y aura bien un jour où on n'y croira plus. Un jour ou l'autre, on sera tous papa et d'un jour à l'autre, on aura disparu. Serons-nous détestables? Serons-nous admirables? Des géniteurs ou des génies? Dites-nous qui donne naissance aux irresponsables, hein? Dites-nous qui? Tiens, tout le monde sait comment on fait des bébés, mais personne sait comment on fait des papas. Monsieur, je sais tout, on aurait hérité, c'est ça. Faut le sucer de son pouce ou quoi? Dites-nous où c'est caché, ça doit faire au moins 1000 fois qu'on a bouffé nos doigts. Hey. Où t'es, papa, où t'es? Où t'es, papa, où t'es? Où t'es, papa, où t'es?
In 2017, on my trip to Romania, we had a layover in Munich before we got to Bucharest. Stepping off that plane was a shock to my system. It was the farthest I'd ever been from home. I had to lay down for a second on a bench in the airport. Here, I don't need to lay down. I feel functional, but I'm a little overwhelmed. France's Charles de Gaulle Airport spits us into a terminal that's shaped like an enormous donut. From there, we head toward a train station that will shuttle us into the city. Paris, France. That famous place you've seen on movies and TV. The very place where John Wick drove a car and did a big action scene in a big traffic circle. The very place where Ratatouille drove a man and cooked some food. The very place where Tom Cruise drove a car and did a big action scene in a big traffic circle. These are the thoughts and pop culture touchstones buzzing in my head as I plod behind Jules as she figures out the public transit system. We hop on the train, and I'm exhilarated to be back in Europe. Uncharted territory. I haven't been here before. Now, before we proceed any further, it's important to know some things about the road ahead. On this day in particular, I was very sleepy. I didn't keep very good track of what happened. I wrote down a lot of notes on some days, and others I didn't. Maybe you'll be able to tell. Do you understand the nature of memory? Maybe like me, you took a lit class in college where you wrote a paper about this kind of thing. That study that people always bring up, about how every time you recall a memory, you're rewriting it in your head. It can only be half as real as the corporeal truth. It's impossible to be objective. If you're a documentary filmmaker, whatever subject you present will be slanted with your perspective, whether you want to or not. It's physics, it's math, it's just the way it works. Everything I present to you could be a lie. You would have no way of knowing. Jules would know. Kim would know. Some of the people we encountered on our journey would know, but they wouldn't know all of it. I can only do an approximation of the truth, of my perspective. Do you think I'm lying to you right now? Do you think it's an accident, or is it on purpose? We get off at a metro station and walk to a hotel Jules booked us for our first few days. A whimsical little guy gives us our keys. He specifies that when you leave the key at the front desk, and then they give it to you when you come back. France is crazy. A few weeks before our departure, Jules noticed that an artist on the label I work for is playing a show in Paris the day we get in. That's today. I got us on the guest list and we're locked in to go see him. When you do something like this, as a music industry employee, whether you know them or not, you have to go up and say hi. It's just what you do. I didn't sleep on the plane, and I'm exhausted. I'm in another country. I'm not in my element. But it's what you do. Jules and I cruise around and get our bearings. We get some drinks, we eat some cheese, we get some Indian food. These details are not exciting, but they happened. I'm on fumes. I have a job to do. We arrive at the venue and the guy at the door doesn't speak English. I have to tell him I'm on a guest list. If you've never had to argue with someone working door at a small to mid-sized venue when you're supposed to be on the list, it's a special kind of awkward interaction. You don't want to be a jerk, but it's like rolling a charisma check in Dungeons & Dragons. Someone at some point in the process messed up, and now you are morally allowed to scam your way in. Only this time, I don't speak the language. I've done months of Duolingo, and I think that I understand French basics. But in action, I'm absolutely useless. Eventually, the door guy gets frustrated and waves us in. Another door guy has us on the list proper, and we make it inside. It's a cozy theater. They don't have a lot of legroom in the seats, but it's nothing I'm not used to. There's an opener who does banter in English and sings in French. Eventually, our man takes the stage and plays a set. I remember being in Bucharest when we found ourselves at a DIY punk show our first night in the country. It was like being across the world. We found ourselves in a parallel universe where things were different, yet the same. Here, it felt like the same universe. I didn't feel like I traveled through space and was in a strange new world. I was on the same planet. There was just a different language mostly being spoken. He ends the show asking for requests, questions, comments. One local raises his hands with a comment and says he listens to his music when he's sad. He turns it into a question and asks him what music he listens to for that. He goes into a diatribe about heavy subjects. He doesn't speak about anything directly, but I know what he's talking about. I say hello. We leave. We get back to our hotel. We fall asleep. This was our first day in France. Jules and I don't have any local currency, so our next task is to find an ATM, but we're not quite sure how to do that. We wander into a store, and Jules asks a guy working a counter if he knows of one nearby. This guy, in the middle of bagging someone's groceries, bolts off the main floor to grab his phone and shows us where to head around a street corner to find an LCL. We follow his instructions, we secure the bag, and start moving toward one of our first destinations. We stumble into a market running parallel to the Eli Wiesel Monument. It's a bit like a flea market back home. It's bustling with trinkets. And a copy of Metal Gear Solid 4. Then, we arrive at Musée de la Chasse et de la Nature, I'm probably that wrong, or the Museum of Hunting and Nature. This came recommended by my friend Katie, who called it her favorite museum in Paris. While the name is technically accurate, its exhibits focus on the relationships between humans and the natural environment through the traditions and practices of hunting. That's from Wikipedia. Here's where the forks are if you need forks.
Maybe I'd hunt again if this is what I used instead of this. Yeah. Is this your bread sore? Is this your butter sore? This one I used to cut cake. The wedding I went to in Spain last year, they did cut the cake with a sword.
Oh my god.
These ones are little. Allons pour un peu de je te voilà qu'il tombe chez la voiture.
Okay.
I thought you were only speaking French on your phone.
That's right.
If you have any English in there, I'm gonna say.
I'll cut it out.
Okay, this person. 77, 82. This person had to be 82. I feel like that's a really long time for
That's a
this
long
period.
time.
Like I hope to make it to 82.
You gotta be a stone cold killer to make it there.
Damn, look at all the forms. This is some Princess Mononoke shit right now.
You know what this makes me think of? What does that make you think of?
A bloomin' onion.
It's the bone bloomin' onion. This crazy owl one is called the Night of Diana. We take a little siesta back at the hotel and then head toward the Basilica of the Sacred Heart of Montmartre, where we eat dinner on the hill. We go up all the stairs. There's so many stairs. Despite dealing with a foot injury, Jules is absolutely outpacing me on the sheer strength to deal with all of these stairs. And it's a nice view up there. Oh, they're in the shop. Being very voyeuristic right now. Then we hit a bar called Le Syndicat. It's really loud. Jules circles back on something we discussed with Elise in the car. Elise, you should make the scavenger hunt, and I'll make a whole thing about it in the movie.
That would be really good.
Make the scavenger hunt and send it to us.
Am I going this way? Wait.
No, left. We hadn't yet gotten our scavenger hunt list, so we're taking matters into our own hands. Jules' idea is that it's going to function like a series of dares, and she even tosses a few my way. We're going to give some to Kim for when she joins us. They're designed to get us out of our comfort zone and make some memories worth making a vlog about. For example, at some point, I'm going to have to go into a bar alone, order a shot, and then walk out after doing it. Jules asked me if I can think of any for her. I can't. Not on command. I'm overwhelmed. It's loud in here. My head feels empty. I don't know if it's the volume or what, but suddenly I'm starting to feel more and more like I'm in that Munich airport, and I need to lay down. I'm getting a nice wide angle while sipping my morning joe. The plan today is to go to Lille, France. It's a smaller city in North France, close to the border of Belgium, and it's my namesake. I think I have blood lineage that goes back there somehow. I don't know. My mom did all that 23andMe stuff a few years ago, but I don't remember the specifics. Either way, it's a short train ride from Paris to Lille, and we're hitting it. The train departs and we see the French countryside sail by. The deeper we go, a dense fog rolls in. We pass a huge field of wind turbines that call to mind when I drove through all of Kansas in a day last year. I listened to a podcast about the history of the Paris catacombs, one of the main tourist attractions we want to go to. The host talks extensively about how tickets are difficult to book and appointments fill up quickly. This fills me with anxiety. Booking this is one of my responsibilities, and I'm scared I'm gonna blow it. Lille is rainy. I'm not quite dressed for how cold it is, and the reality that I didn't sleep very well last night is hitting me. But this is it, this is my origin. Maybe I'll figure something out here. Something profound. I buy an umbrella because I foolishly left mine at the hotel, and we're wandering a bit in the pouring rain and step into a cafe where we intend to wait out the nasty weather. I'm fumbling to understand the menu without Jules' help, and I wind up ordering a breakfast of just 2 sunny-side-up eggs. I'm becoming self-aware of one of my faults as a traveling companion. I'm passive and indecisive. In LA last year, several of my plans fell through on a day off of a business trip, and I spent the better part of 8 hours wandering aimlessly across the famously unwalkable Los Angeles, waiting for an Airbnb to open up. This was something a local defined to me as weird guy behavior. In a strange land, maybe I'm a weird guy. Not in the way Crocodile Dundee was when he came to America, but in the way where I'm mostly non-functional. It's raining. The primary cultural destination, the market and the old stock exchange, isn't open, and we're aimless. This is the moment, if there ever was one, for us to split up. We walk a bit through the historic part of town, and I try to guide us through an art gallery's courtyard where I thought they might have installations of giant skulls outside to surprise Jules while I'm taking the guidance reins. I saw them on Google Maps. We get there and they don't. It's empty. At a street corner, we part ways to go on our separate adventures, buying us about 4 hours to get into some trouble, and then reconvene for a spell before catching the train back to Paris. I'm not quite sure where to go. Many museums are closed, and while I'm always game to just walk around, that's veering terribly close to weird guy behavior. The camera I'm using is a DJI Pocket 2. I got it for a few reasons. Mainly, it seemed easy to carry around. It's got good file size economy with decent image quality. I mean, look, it's looked okay. You think it looks okay, right? And I didn't think I'd look like a weird guy carrying it around pointing it at people doing tourist stuff.
The way that you're videoing looks extremely
What?
Suspicious.
But when you start to feel like you're doing weird guy behavior, even normal guy behavior can exacerbate it. Also, it's raining, and this lady said you're not supposed to get it wet.
You can't really use it when it's raining because it's not weather sealed, it's not waterproof, it's not weather sealed. So I think that was kind of a bit of a flaw on DJI's part because a lot of people are going to be using this for vlogging.
So I'm in the city of my blood origins, I think, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm alone, and I'm worried I'm going to ruin my weird guy camera. We're around a tremendous amount of World War II history, and I picked out the Citadelle de Lille to investigate. On Google Maps, it looks like the kind of thing you'd see on a map and want to explore. Like, look at that. I cross a busy street and see the entrance to a zoo, and stumble onto a lonely path that catches my eyes due to a collection of public-use exercise equipment that is identical to some in a park in Chapel Hill. I take a snap to joke about it with my friend Sav, and see that an enormous puddle blocks the rest of the path. I feel a force pulling me in that direction, and I accept my fate to get my shoes muddy, like paying a toll to find what I'm looking for. Out here on the weird swampy trail, I feel like I'm home. My anxieties are gone. They got a swamp beast in the water, and another swamp beast on land, and creatures. And when I'm out here, I'm away from the noise and I can really meditate on a question. Am I a weird guy? I don't know if I really know the answer to that yet. I was hoping going to my blood origins would give me some kind of clarity, but that would have been too obvious. It's only day 3, but I can focus on what I do know. And right now, I know that a country boy from the foothills of North Carolina is all the way out here in Lille, France, and he's mudding. I round out the trail and try to enter the Citadel thinking it's a historical monument, but I see a bunch of guys in berets toting assault rifles and I realize it's an active military base, so I do a 180 and run away. Jules and I reconnect back in front of a big weird church and share our stories of our times apart. She hit up a historical museum of some guy she didn't realize was a military general. In a way, our disparate afternoons rhyme like a poem. Then we get lost on the way back to the station, and I have a meltdown about my poor navigation skills. Jules booked the train tickets, and most everything else, and now that I'm out of my safe space, I feel like I'm dragging. Delayed reaction culture shock is sinking into both of us. We have little meltdowns at the little train station while our train is late. We're hungry, we're tired, we're holding out to have a nice meal in Paris to be healed. I try to find a restaurant on Google Maps, which we ultimately arrive at, and it's completely at capacity. I freak out. Jules points at a random establishment in eyesight called McKellar, and we go inside. It rocks. The bartender is friendly, the beers are good, and it feels like a haven where we can reset our brains. The kind of place where you think, I can take a date here. Jules draws her runes for the day. McKellar, great place. We get snacks at a nearby grocery store. I want to drink precisely one beer. Everything is about 8%. I get a Corona, it's not twist off. I have to use one of Jules' lighters to open it. I never used a lighter to open a beer successfully before. I do it. For the first time that day, I feel like a man. We turn on the TV and flip through all the channels. Everything is in French. It's day 4 and it's time to get out of Paris. The walking is taking a toll on us. Our feet are hurting, band-aids are needed, but we have a newly found forward momentum. After a few train stops, we're at Gare de Lyon and awaiting our train to the gastronomy capital of France. It runs a bit late, but we load in. We both have window seats. I'm zoned out for the whole ride, barely listening to music. There are screaming kids on this one. We land in Lyon and have some confusion figuring out how to get to the main drag. This stresses me. My worry that I'm a bad travel companion is wearing on me. Jules figures out a bus stop, and we get dropped on a street that feels a bit like downtown Raleigh. The plan is to find some food, and I feel anxious. Jules wants me to do this one. She's been pulling all the weight, and I haven't. I gotta do better here, I promised. We walk a bit up the road and find... Turns out this is a pretty common clothing store in France. Anyway, we stop on a corner and I'm visibly stressed trying to find a restaurant, scrolling through Google Maps. A nearby guy drinking a beer alone on a patio seat sees us and asks if we're looking for somewhere to eat. He runs down the entire block and calls out each location. We've got fancy sandwiches right here, nice Italian up the block, a Szechuan place that's pretty authentic and he doesn't think we'd like. A friendly stranger is a real boon in this moment and sets me completely straight, and Jules asks him his name. Alexei. There's our name exchange we've been looking for. Thank you, Alexei. We wind up settling on the Szechuan place where the vibe is right. Jules needs a nap, and I'm anxious to walk around this new city. That's the plan as soon as we check into our spot. We decide to seek out coffee to kill just a bit of extra time, and I grab some at a nearby cafe while Jules sits out front. When I join her, I notice there's a lot of graffiti on a sign. I zero in on an "I love MILFs" written in plain English. My eye is caught by an awning that proudly declares, coffee, bar, tattoo. I make a joke about these being the 3 main things you need, and we both file it away. Getting into our lodging is as complicated as a mist puzzle. At one point, Jules asked me to shine a light so she can see, but I'm already taking a flash photo of her struggling with the keypad. This doesn't go over well. After figuring out how they count floors in France, Jules settles in to sleep, and I walk outside to do my weird guy behavior. Without any real clear objective, and fresh ground to explore, I'm in a pretty good mood. This city looks like how I imagined the series of Unfortunate Events books looked when I was a kid. Our spot is on the edge of a touristy cobblestone neighborhood along the riverside, across the water from historic parts of town. I immediately head toward the river and cross a pedestrian bridge. They got this crazy statue of a naked guy holding another naked guy. He's got a real strong ass. And I would learn why very soon, because this city is full of stairs. A lot of stairs. It's also about the time all the kids are getting off school, and it's one of those moments when you're in a different place and get a window into the way things carry on when you're not there. Kids in school uniforms giggle in their cliques. Youngsters run around with their backpacks swinging behind them. People walking dogs around without a leash, and they remain perfectly behaved. I see another cafe that appears to be a chain that's also called Jules. It all feels a little extra natural. I walk past this comedy club with this great inspiring graffiti next to it. I walk down an alley that doesn't seem to end, and I worry that I got lost in some kind of impossible space wormhole. I remember that right now, there's a work meeting happening 4,000 miles away, and I don't have to go to it. Eventually, I reconvene with Jules for a spell before we head out for dinner. She's doing research on the coffee bar tattoo place we saw earlier, and seeing if they do walk-ins. That's on the scavenger hunt list. Get a tattoo. She jokes about us getting matching tattoos. I say, haha. But what if? Needles scare me. But more than that, I'm scared of committing to a single image forever. If I got a tattoo when I was like 18, I would have gotten one of Majora's Mask. I want to get that now. We walk 5 minutes from our spot to the tattoo place and find that several of the artists are outside drinking, and we chat them up. Jules zeroes in on one of the artists' flash outside, and the manager tries to pair me up with someone inside. He throws her portfolio onto the table, and it's all anime and manga, which is fine, but I don't want that on me. I walk back outside, and Jules has Flash picked out and is talking to one of the artists, Yedan, about a time. He asked me if I'm interested, so he could bang our tats. I like his style, but none of the Flash is connecting with me. I tell him it would be my first tattoo, and I'm not really sure what I would want. He says if I think of anything, I could just shoot him a message on Instagram. He sounds like he'd be up for just about anything. I think about this when Jules and I go to a nearby bar called Betty's. It's very Cheers vibes.
This better be in your vlog, Walt. Where's your video camera? Have you taken any videos?
We sit upstairs with some beers around a bunch of 20-somethings. I'm terrified that I'm going to agree to the tattoo and then back out of it. While these fears sweep over me, I realize what I'd want to put on my body forever.
Mr. Hammond, I think we're back in business.
I want to get a raptor. I DM our new friend and ask him if he would be up for it. He says yes. This means not only have I signed up for a time, but he's doing a custom for me. You can't back out of that. That scares me. Later that evening, Jules and I get dinner at a traditional Leonese place. We dress up nice for it. The optics make it look like we're on a honeymoon. As it would have it, years ago, Jules and I matched on some dating app, and I ghosted her after a few messages. Eventually, I became friends with her roommate, and we reconnected. She confesses to me that she told someone in those days that she had a friend crush on me and wanted to hang out with me more. And lo and behold, here we are, halfway across the world, on a friendship honeymoon. It's a sweet moment. We end the night at a bar playing cards around a bunch of British people. I'm really worried I'm gonna back out of that dinosaur tattoo. But I won't know that I did it until I do it. This whole trip so far, I haven't had a belt. I forgot to bring my belt, so I go to Jules, the store, and get a pretty solid one. The cashier is English and chit-chats with me about my trip. It's nice. Then, it's time to face the music. It's time to go get tatted up. We walk in, and our tattoo artist friend Yedan is happy to see us. I'm not quite sure if he's actually going to have a design ready for me, Our correspondence was a pretty flat, yeah. He walks us in and is about to run Jules through placement, and then turns to me. He's got something he's worked up, and it's a drawing of a velociraptor, done like an old science book design. I say that it reminds me of the realistic version of Yoshi we see in the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie. And he knows exactly what I'm talking about. I love it, and my fear of chickening out is all but gone. He even had some backups that are simple line drawings, for a smaller commitment, but I'm all in. Jules gets hers done relatively quick, and when she wraps up, Yedon steps outside for a ciggy break and buys us around. I'm nervous, but excited. Yedon's touch is gentle. It felt more like being gently scratched by someone sitting in a massage chair. Still anxious to look at the results of the work, Yedon would get my attention and say, "Look at this. I'm so excited about how this is turning out." Other artists in the shop would walk by and look over his shoulder and give the eyebrows up nod that transcends language barrier, as if to say, "Yeah man, that dinosaur is turning out pretty cool, man." After a couple of hours in the chair, the work is done. He does a lengthy photo shoot of my leg for his portfolio, covers it up, and tells me we should swing by one last time tomorrow to give us the premium sticky paper to seal us up until it's fully healed. I take a step outside a new man. A guy who finally did something he's been meaning to do for a while. Unfortunately, I don't quite have enough time to do one of my plans for the day. Hit up the Museum of Film Miniatures. They got a bunch of movie stuff there. Because I have to go pick up some wine for Jules and I to share over dinner tonight. I asked my good friend Ashley, well-read on natural wines, for some local recommendations, and I smile to myself as I walk into a ritzy wine shop, knowing that a boy from the foothills of western North Carolina is about to ask if they got anything that I heard was good from a girl from the flatlands of eastern NC. Jules makes some pasta, and we watch a comedy special of some lady that Jules met once. It's nice. Then we try to make sense of the washing machine. Jules wakes up before me and goes on a bike ride. She brings back croissants and coffees. We head to the old theaters, up long and winding streets, like walking backwards through a Sonic level. We arrive at the theaters, and the pavement turns to cobblestone. Not the fake stuff. Real, old, cobbled stones. Jules mumbles, "Now this is a tourist attraction I can get into." I gotta take 5. The stairs are obliterating me. I collect myself while she wanders off to drink in the surroundings. The theaters sit on the side of the hill in between the trees, offering a breathtaking vista of the city below. The skyline swallows up the river and extends into a blue gradient that touches the horizon. I stand at the height of the stands, knees knocking, considering how easily a wrong move could send me ragdolling down the flights of stone. But I don't fall. There are groups of families speaking French, but clearly on vacation from other places, seeing the sights. I wonder if the kids here are bored by this the way I was completely uninterested in Amish country. At the bottom of the stage, crew members drill boards and twiddle knobs for some kind of live event. I'll never know what it is. It's like an ancient theater being Red Rocksified. I snap a picture for Instagram and falsely geotag it as Raleigh's Red Hat Amphitheater. Our tattoo artist friend Yedon likes it, and I wonder if he tapped the button and understood I was making a joke. I walk back up the steps and look upon the overgrown ruins that line the theater. Something most relatable to me via Arthurian fantasy video games. I think about everyone at home tearing through Zelda after they get off work. I'm checking in on Twitter, seeing people gush about it, forming new inside jokes that I'm not yet privy to because I'm not 10 or 15 hours into this latest $70 mass media product to entertain and pacify. An anxiety leading up to this trip was that I would be overwhelmed by Zelda FOMO. My one-track childish gamer mind bummed out that I was missing the zeitgeist in the crucial 2-week window when everyone is absorbing a new big thing at the same time, sharing clips and screenshots of it. But right now, it dawns on me I haven't really felt any of that. I'm traversing the ruins. All this stuff is older than just about any man-made structure I can encounter in the States. Much older than the apartment I lived in during college that got knocked down to make way for mixed-use building developments. You gotta pay your respects to the infinity of the human experience, and think about just how old these bricks are. I'm not thinking about a new Zelda video game. I'm gonna play that when I get home. I'm thinking about the past. I'm bonking my head on ceilings that will outlast me. After enough of that, I head up the road to the Basilica and ogle at the Goyles. An old man is playing accordion outside of the church gates. We could have marked that off the scavenger hunt if we hadn't already. I wander inside. It's Ascension Day, and they're holding Mass, doing the choir-like synchronized prayer. Unfamiliar territory for this Southern Baptist. As a kid, I hated going in cathedrals. The high ceilings gave me an intense vertigo I didn't know how to process. It felt like at any moment the floor would fly away from me and I'd go careening into the ceiling, goring myself on the architecture above. My hat removed, I stand amongst the fellow tourists as we stare at a bunch of people practicing religion, and it makes me feel kind of weird. I wonder if God is mad at me for the dinosaur tattoo. I wander around back of the enormous church where a clear view of the city awaits. We get lunch at another traditional place. I tell Jules about my religious guilt for the tattoo, and she reassures me that God created and destroyed the dinosaurs, and the permanent fixture on my leg is honoring the creation. That makes me feel better. We order dessert. Mine is a little chocolate cake and a swamp of melted vanilla ice cream. It's pretty good. After that, we take a quick stroll through some of the triboules of Lyon. They're hidden passages that run between the buildings, and they're full of signs begging tourists to keep their mouths shut, on account of the fact people live right behind those walls. It's history. And now, it's time for me to go to the museum. Jules and I part ways and I head over. I get a little anxious. There's a queue to get in. What if I don't make it in time? What if I blew it on my last chance? Was getting the dino tat a mistake? But after a quick wait, I'm paying for a ticket and I'm being directed to stairs leading down. It's set in an old historic building, where you start in a basement and work your way up across 6 floors that empty out into an outdoor breezeway. The opening basement has full sets from some French movie I ain't never heard of. A sign warns me that one of them may be disturbing. I can't tell what's supposed to disturb me. It's just dark. So I head up the stairs into a small courtyard, and I come face to face with a beautiful creature. It's not the same prop that Laura Dern touched, but it was made in the same mold, and I still took a selfie with it. And then I went inside, and there, I was swept away. Look, it's one of the frozen cops from Batman and Robin. It's some weird prop from Dark Crystal. Stop motion puppets are the part in Beetlejuice when they try to look scary. One of the minks from the fur coat in Ghostbusters 2 when the lady gets slime splashed on her. Slimer, Zool, industrial design of the cryopod from Aliens, storyboards of the opening scene in The Matrix, signed Sixth Sense script, storyboards of the scene in Spider-Man when he says, "It's you who's out, Gobby, out of your mind."
Wrong answer.
A signed CSI New York script, signed by, I guess, the cast of CSI New York. This is in Lyon, France. Man in Black guy, Troy hat, Close Encounters man, Dark Crystal dress that the lady with the bangs wore, Break Bad, Robot Cop, Hunger Games Cop, Forrest Gump Cop, Terminator 2 Cop, Terminator 2 Finger, Terminator Stomach, sorry, that's from Matrix, Mummy, Orc, Fred, Charles, Ring, Grindhouse presents Planet Terror Face, Bonanza, some more movie guns, Sherlock Holmes and his famous gun that Sherlock Holmes uses, this weird X-Files Scully head, this weird X-Files the prosthetic arm that John Ritter had when he was a robot. on the Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode where John Ritter was a robot trying to date her mom. Remember that? Remember when John Ritter was an evil robot trying to date Buffy's mom? They have the arm he had. It's in France. Tom Cruise the Vampire. A Nazi scout from Inglourious Bastards. Doom. Piranha Double D? Antonio Banderas' FBI file from the movie Ballistic X vs. Sever. Remember Ballistic X vs. Sever? They got his file from that movie in Lyon, France. Edward's hands. Wonka bar. Grand Budapest box. Superman's underpants. Light fixture from Fifth Element. That's a French movie, I think. The wet mirror from The Matrix. The light fixture from Star Trek Generations, everyone's favorite Star Trek movie. Gladiator helmet, 300 helmet, Prince of Persia starring Jake Gyllenhaal based on the video game Helmet. Blade 2 prop sword that isn't a real sword but gives the illusion you're cutting through something using movie magic. A bunch of Harry Potter crap. Type 2 phaser from Star Trek, La Nouvelle Generation. Doubtfire. Doubtfire. Pregnant prosthetic stomach from House MD, or as he's called in the beautiful country of France, Dr. House. Narnia Cyclop, Hollow Man, Kevin Bacon Hollow Man. Partial Grinch, this bat from Batman. Thelma and Louise, fake heads for when they blow up at the end. Malkovich, Nutty Professor, Splice. Remember Splice? Remember the movie Splice? They got some facial prosthetics from it here in Lyon, France. Doubtfire, The Mask. Fraser Beast. The City of Lost Children, I Thing. Michael, Anonymous Man. 2015 shoes. 2015 hoverboard. Hoverboards don't work on water. Local news article. International news article. Chicken Run. This wall from Judge Dredd. This wall from The Abyss. Independence Day, God bless America. Total Recall Copter. The Fifth Element Pizza Planet truck. Wonka Train? Event Horizon spaceship from the movie Event Horizon, but it's not the ship called Event Horizon from the movie Event Horizon. This miniature set from Grand Budapest Hotel. This, the bust from Spider-Man. This, it's the Money Train from Money Train! The Bones. The Terminator Bones. This tube from Escape from LA? Three Musketeers? Jack Sparrow? Fantastic Mr. Fox? Whoa. Alien Queen. Alien Resurrection fake Sigourney Weaver prosthetic for the chest burster when they cut the chest burster out of her. Remember Alien Resurrection? Remember that? That was directed by the guy who did Amelie, which is French. They didn't have anything from Amelie, but you know what they did have? The Newborn from Alien Resurrection. A chest burster from AVP, Alien vs. Predator. A face hugger from AVP, Alien vs. Predator. A futuristic assault weapon from Alien Resurrection. Another futuristic assault weapon from Alien Resurrection. A pulse rifle from Aliens. The racist part from Temple of Doom. More of the really racist part from Temple of Doom. A snake from Raiders. Gizmo. The Bicentennial Man. This guy from Jurassic Park 3. I like this guy. Another robot cop. I have no idea what this guy is from, but I like him, don't you? Doom Rat, they got another Doom Rat. It's on a separate floor from the other one. Hulk Frog, remember Hulk Frog? Gordy, I thought this was Babe, and Gordy was what they called him in France, but no, Gordy is a whole other pig. This is a whole other pig. The freak-ass spiders from Jumanji. This picture is blurry because it scared me to see this in person because I'm scared of this. A Fifth Element guy. Mimic guy. Hey, look, there's another Fifth Element guy down there. I didn't even realize that until just now. A Mist Bug. Baron Munchausen guy. A pod racer. I'm placing all my bets on Sebulba. He's gonna win the race. Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Mars Attacks. Honey, Beetlejuice. Matrix guy. Scary Movie 3 alien. Remember Scary Movie 3? They got one of the aliens in Lyon, France. Man in Black 2. The Alien Queen. I was pretty excited to see the Alien Queen. When I was in Seattle, at the Science Fiction Museum in Seattle back in 2010, I thought she was gonna be there, but it was just her son. And like, I was really excited to see her son, but you know, it's great to see the Queen as well. And hey, look, there's a whole Batman floor. Do you like Batman? I think he's okay. Catwoman, Batman, this penguin, this thing. And then I got up to the top floor where they have actual miniatures, many of which were made by the founder of the museum. It's hard to tell just how amazing these are in still images, but like these really blew me away in person. Like when you see it in person, you're like, oh my God, look at these things. Like they're all so small. Look at that thing. Look at that. I agree. Artist passion or popular spare time, humans have always miniaturized everyday items. I shouldn't be making fun. I've been having trouble with the language this whole time. I got carried away in here. You wander into a place like this full of all this stuff that appeals to you specifically in an unusual part of the world, and you get kind of reminded that there's still magic in the world. Like when you're a kid, I used to feel that way. When you'd hear something and you couldn't just like fact check it on your phone, there's still a sense of mystery. And I felt like I'd solved one of those mysteries by finding the pregnant Dr. House stomach inside a weird museum in France. Surrounding myself with all this lowered my inhibitions in a way that hasn't really happened since I got here. Like I went and got a tattoo, but that scared me. I wish my pic of this one wasn't so blurry. It's called the Time Machine. Anyway, I took a selfie in the bathroom and it was time to go back downstairs. Oh wait, hold on, there's a few more, bear with me here. Aliens miniature, iRobot, Lara Croft sword, Jim Hopper's watch, Ewok, and the crown jewel of the whole establishment, the freaking Green Goblin. So I head back to Betty's, and I get one drink, and I sip it alone upstairs. I realize that this bar that feels like Cheers is designed to feel American. It's really obvious, but it didn't click with me until now. I felt at home within this artifice. Jules reaches out and tells me she's at a creperie by our spot. I finish my drink and head back across the river. I sit down with her at a table outside. We catch up on what we've been doing that day. I'm excited to share the list of weird things I just saw. After I'm done, I found out Jules has had a rough day and gets vulnerable with me. I don't really know how to respond. I'm doing my best, but I can't help but feel like a fool unable to do grown-up things when I'm coming off a high from seeing the Alien Queen. And it feels pretty childish. I try to articulate a version of this to her. We make each other cry. She tells me I speak with little compassion for myself whenever I talk about myself. It's a practice that doesn't do anyone favors. This rings around in my head. We wind up going to a busy McDonald's. They have a sauce that's something like tartar sauce and sour cream. I get a Royale with cheese, like in Pulp Fiction. And it's not the best fast food I've ever had, but it's pretty good. We head back. I see a funny picture on Twitter and it feels like our trip. Jules agrees. I wake up as Jules is getting back from her morning bike ride. She says the vibes were off. People gave her weird looks. It was a strange omen. Despite this, I feel a certain emotional catharsis after the previous night. I clean up, vacuum the floor, get the dusty croissant crumbs off the ground, fold my laundry. We check out and head for the train station. I liked Lyon a lot. I'm a little sad to see it disappear as we hurtle towards the Alps. As we ride the train, I look forward to seeing the thing that brought us here. I look forward to Kim joining us. A new party member can cool one off from the friction you encounter with any traveling companion, with the most dangerous companion of all being the self. I haven't seen a single bidet since I got here. On the train, I check in on my Find My Friends map and take a look at how far away all my loved ones are. They're pretty far. I'm really close to Geneva. That's where Frankenstein's from, I think. I made a movie about him when I was in high school. I was pretty happy with how that one turned out. Maybe this one will be better. Speaking of, the train slices through the Alps and the mountains tower above us. Reminds me of where I grew up, in the foothills of western North Carolina. Driving up the side of a mountain to get to school every day on the other side of the world. Back when I'd never been this far from home. When I would get anxiety just going through a fast food drive-thru. After a few hours, we arrive in Aix-les-Bains. It's a relatively small vacation town, and it's where we will finally join forces with Kim. We walk up one flight of stairs at the platform, and there she is. Hugs are exchanged, and we've got plenty of time to kill and catch our breath. We mosey up the street and find our lodging, another convoluted, Myst-esque series of contraptions to solve before we can put our bags down. We get confused by the coffee maker in the kitchen. Having a third person in the group is immediately game-changing. I feel a lot better taking charge on simple tasks, guiding us to destinations and finding spots to eat. I pick out a place called Maya that looks casual enough for our immediate needs. They got milkshakes and crepes that you can add brand name candies to, like a cookout milkshake. It's deserted and I'm anxious that I led us to a stinker, but the guy behind the counter who doesn't speak much English is eager to please us. It's one of the most raw examples of trying to communicate with someone through a language barrier, and their warmth shines through the obstacles. It's a common and universal part of the human experience, but one this mountain boy ain't gotten a lot of. We head towards a beach and look at the mountains. There's a swan off in the distance, poking its head into the water, looking for food. Jules and Kim trek into the water. Our boy Ye Don said that we'd be fine to submerge our new tats, but I'm scared to get my dinosaur wet. I wander up the road and see the striking image of a team of landscapers shaving overgrowth off of a miniature golf course. It takes a moment looking at it before I realize what it is they're rehabilitating. I'm so arrested by this visual, I don't whip out my camera and capture it. Yeah.
Are you moving it? Like, it moved its head.
How does it know what to focus on?
This guy's, it's got a gimbal.
Like a chicken.
Yeah. It's a steady cam.
That's amazing.
So then I can shake it around and it only looks kind of bad. The time for the gig is approaching, and we get dressed up and start moving. We wind up hitting a wine bar and get seated in the very back, which is pretty much a cave. This is a scavenger hunt item. Back when Jules found this show, which was more or less the impetus for this entire trip, she thought it was Joe Hisaishi leading a symphony orchestra. Mr. Hisaishi did a lot of the music for Studio Ghibli movies. I haven't seen every single Miyazaki Ghibli movie, but I like what I have seen. I've always felt really attached to Totoro. Eventually, it turns out Joe was not going to be in the house, but we were going to see a symphony orchestra play the music. We walk into the theater, it's inside of a casino, and there's 4 chairs on the stage, and it's going to be a string quartet. We ask an usher for help, and she brings us to the absolute front row. Jules sniped these tickets immediately. Now, growing up, I'd go to this local video store on our side of town in a strip mall in between a pharmacy and a restaurant that gave me food poisoning one time. I'd go into this place and rent Banjo-Kazooie and all the late 90s classic video games. And they had this real limited selection of movies for kids, and they didn't get new releases in very often. So I wound up watching the same stuff over and over again. One of these was My Neighbor Totoro, the 90s home video dubbed by Troma, pre-Disney. And I was like 4 years old and I didn't know what Japan was, but I could tell this movie was foreign. And I could also tell that these 2 girls were relatable, living out in the sticks. They got a big bunch of woods behind their house. An adult is telling them about magic critters in the woods and their feeble little brains are buying every word of it. Now, maybe some would disagree with the exact terminology, but I believe this in my heart. These girls are rednecks, and I could see myself in these kids. I'd watch American children's television, and I just get jealous when I'd see the characters in cartoons living out child wish fulfillment. Like those Rocket Power kids in their urban walkable community. They're always off doing extreme sports and having fun. Their dad just lets them walk all over town by themselves. How much money is Raymundo really getting from the Shore Shack? How does he afford all this? And he just lets these 12-year-olds walk around unattended at every hour of the day? This is what I thought about watching Rocket Power. But here I am watching Totoro, seeing some kids who lived in a culturally different yet similar lifestyle. They can't just walk to town. They need to ride in a car or catch a bus or something. They got woods out back. Woods that capture the imagination. I felt seen. And before me in the front row across the world, deep inside a French casino, here's some people playing the Totoro song right in front of me. And much like that mini golf course by the lake, the detritus of time is being weed whacked off of my heart and reminding me where I came from, reminding me what inspired me in my earliest memories. Now, I never had a big Totoro live in the woods behind my house to show me that there is magic in the world, no matter how ugly things may get. But I do have friends that pulled me into a French casino to remind me that experiences are worth having, risks are worth taking, and vlogs are worth making. It makes me cry for the second time in 24 hours. Then we went across the street and did shots with a bartender named Julian. We head back to our spot, and Kim realizes her nice water bottle is missing. It's late, and we're walking the lonely, dimly lit streets of Oxelbahn. We return to Julian, who's happy to see us, but unable to help. It has to be in the casino. We walk in and find an employee who speaks English, and he seems a little uptight. He won't let us all into the theater at once to find the water bottle, but he'll escort Kim. Jules and I sit in the ornate lobby and entertain ourselves taking photos. Kim and the casino guy emerge triumphant, with water bottle in hand. The casino guy immediately warms up to us and tells us he's excited to fly into Los Angeles in 2 weeks, go to Vegas, and then see the Grand Canyon. We tell him he's going to have a great time, because that's exactly what's going to happen. The final act of our journey is a return to Paris. The thought of the trip coming to an end and heading back home is hard for me to process, but I focus on the present. It's Saturday, we're in Paris. Today, our plan is to have a night out on the town. Kim and Jules want to go dancing. Back home, I get myself out of these situations by saying, that's not really my thing. But here, what is my thing? Maybe some things are my thing, and I just haven't tried them yet. I got a dinosaur tattoo now. Maybe I'm a guy who goes out dancing. I don't know. Now, we have a rough itinerary. We're gonna head for the tower to do Eiffel Tower things at night, then find a place that's open until morning and post up. There's also a list of scavenger hunt things to knock off, and this is a pretty good night to do them. I get a drink alone at Titi's, the bar downstairs in our hostel. I try and order in French, and the bartender looks at me funny. Regardless, the vibe in here feels good. This is sort of my Cheers in Paris, except I don't talk to anyone. Speaking of Cheers, it's interesting to me that skull in French is like Fraser Crane. Something to think about. We get a baguette and charcuterie supplies to eat by the river. It's a popular activity. There's people all over, smoking cigarettes, knocking back bottles of wine, eating takeaway meals. In America, when I drink a beer at the river, there's a dull anxiety within me that a river cop is going to bust my ass. It's happened before. There's a worry inside me from a lifetime in America that someone is going to get me, whether I'm doing something wrong or not. Out here, that's just not the case. You can just drink a bottle of wine next to the river. It's okay. They let a rat cook people's food here. Tonight requires a plan. We hit the city streets. We get a drink and hang for a minute. We go somewhere else. I do a shot by myself in a bar and immediately leave. Something I've been scared to do, but tonight's the night to do it. We'll go to the Eiffel Tower. We're gonna text our crush at the Eiffel Tower. We leave the Eiffel Tower. We find a place that's open until 6 a.m. and we stay there until 6 a.m. when the sun comes up. We start trekking towards the tower. We're feeling good from our dinner wine. We stop at a spot and I get a drink called the f***ing Passion. We walk up the block. There's a bar open on the street and I have a direct line to the bartender. This is the spot to do it. This is where the shot will be done. I look at my phone and I try to commit to memory what "can I get one whiskey shot?" is in French. I approach and the barkeep is eager to hear my order. My request falls out of me like marbles in the mouth. He gives me a look. I just say in English, "One whiskey shot?" He takes a step back and points at a bottle. It's brown, it looks like whiskey. I nod my head. He sees Jules and Kim over my shoulder, watching from the street. He asks if one is okay. I confirm. He pulls 2 glasses out from behind the bar, and he's already grabbing bottles before I can stop him. He pours me a whiskey shot and fills the other glass with something green. He lifts his green glass up and beckons me to cheers. Here in Paris, no one does a shot alone. We bid each other santé, and we shoot. And he won't let me pay for it, and bids me farewell. And then we move on. It felt like a magical moment, and I was glad that I waited until then to mark it off the list. The trek continues. We wander up cobblestone streets, and the nightlife feels a bit livelier. We pick a spot that seems particularly rowdy with a loud neon sign, and head inside. Feels like a study abroad bar. A bunch of people are having a birthday party. They play Dancing Queen, and we jump around a little. Someone checks the geography and realizes we've been orbiting the Eiffel Tower without actually getting any closer to it through the night. We're a few drinks deep, and we need to start making progress. Eventually, we just get an Uber and get dropped off at the tower. Probably. It's pretty crazy how big the tower is. Like, you know it's going to be big, but it curls up over you like she's looking down at you. We find an empty spot in the field. Jules does a headstand. We take some funny photos. We text some crushes. And it's time for the main event. We wind up at a bar with a low cover charge and walk inside. It's not quite what I pictured a Paris nightclub as. It's just a large, grimy room with college kids and dirtbag 30-somethings bopping to dance music. Not very unlike what I'd find at home. But I'm still here for a good time. The hours go by quick on a Saturday night in Paris. A young man zeroes in on Jules and gives her his student ID as a token of strange affection. She knocks her task off the list, but Kim and I don't have so much luck tonight. Kim and I wind up playing a few rounds of foosball with some youngsters in the basement who don't speak a lick of English. It's fun. It's sloppy getting back. The sun's coming up. The hostel's further than we thought it was. We're tired. I'm worried we're gonna miss our morning appointment. Because tomorrow, we're gonna see the bones. We're all hungover, and we have an appointment with the catacombs. Back in Lyon, Jules managed to find tickets for a Sunday morning catacomb tour right after I complained about my fears that we wouldn't get some in time. The catch is, we gotta get there in a narrow window, the morning after our big night out on the town. As a fan of bones and dead things, I'm pretty excited to see the catacombs. This famous enormous collection of bones sits beneath Paris because they ran out of cemetery space in the 1800s. It's a tremendously long way down. The number of steps to pass through truly makes you feel like you're entering the underworld.
These really just keep going, huh?
It's a lot of bones down there. They really don't want you to touch the bones. I'm struck by one tidbit in the museum. When I reached the room where in 1897, a group of 50 amateur musicians held a secret concert. They played Dance Macabre and a bunch of cheeky stuff like that. In college, I thought it was revolutionary when me and my dirtbag college radio friends would steal the student media PA and hold DIY rock shows in our basements. But we were getting outdone by punks in France 100 years earlier. I take a selfie with the bones and feel kind of weird about it. I think most of these bodies were more concerned with their souls than whether or not their corporeal vessels were respected. But I feel like I'm disrespecting someone on their home turf. The living tracking mud into the floors of the dead's home, that kind of thing. We eventually get topside and we split up for some shopping and breaks. I take a much needed nap. After I wake, I get another beer downstairs alone at the cafe in the hostel building. I'm completely chilled out in this moment. Back home, I don't really just go somewhere and sit, drink a coffee or beer. I usually just do that at home. Like if someone sees me there, they'll make judgments. I'm on my phone too much, trying too hard to look interesting. or I'm up to no good. But here I don't feel like anyone's up to no good. And I don't think anyone thinks that of me. Even when I'm waving my weird camera around in public, it doesn't feel like they're clocking me as a weird nerd. I wonder if that's a Europe thing, or if I'm just making these things up in my head back in America. The three of us reconvene to have a quiet night after last night's raging. We get pizza at a spot up the road, and it's one of the best meals of the trip. We walk up the river, go to the Louvre, and we absorb energies from the prism.
Il était beau comme un enfant, fort comme un homme. C'était l'été évidemment, et j'ai compté en le voyant mes nuits d'automne. J'ai mis de l'ordre à mes cheveux, un peu plus de noir sur mes yeux, ça l'a fait rire. Approché de moi, j'aurais donné n'importe quoi pour le séduire. Il venait d'avoir 18 ans, c'était le plus bel argument de sa victoire. Il ne m'a pas parlé d'amour, il pensait que les mots...
We hit the botanical gardens. We arrive and split in 3 directions, and I begin wandering around. I get caught up in the rosary and look at the ones that have bloomed, and the ones still on the way. I'm struck by how spiky some of them are. As I wander the greenery, I remember my walk around the Citadel in Lille last week. It feels like so long ago. And I come back to that age-old question. Am I a weird guy? Around me, there's a lot of other people just wandering. Lots of people who just seem like regular old Parisian locals, reading books, writing little things down in a journal. Maybe their journals will be translated into scripts for their vlogs that they will one day edit and show to people. While I'm coming full circle, I realize there's a paleontology museum right there in the middle of the gardens. It feels dramatically significant that I go in there later. Perhaps I'll find some meaning amongst the bones. We get some banh mi's and split ways. I hop into a comic book shop and want to drop hundreds of dollars on nerd crap. I get some Princess Mononoke stickers for the squad. Then, it's time to head to the Paleontology Museum. In here, I commune with the bones. I'm taken aback by the volume of guys in here. 2 floors and a balcony, an ocean of bones, arranged to form the creatures that once walked on the same earth that we walk on. I'm surrounded by alternative Parisian couples looking at petrified monkey skulls together. It makes me very aware of the bones inside myself. I don't think I'm gonna have my bones propped up in a museum when I die, but I feel like I've got a lot in common with these guys. For the most part, they seem like weird guys. They're kind of all weird guys. This evening we return to Montmartre and eat dinner on the hill, this time with Kim. Jules asks some strangers for a cigarette. We return to McKellar, the same bar that Jules and I revived ourselves after our weird day at Lille. It feels good to be back. Tomorrow's our last real day in Paris before Jules and I go home, and Kim continues her Euro trip alone. We came here seeking answers, but it seems like we're going home with more questions. They're pretty good questions, at least.
Can you see the fangs when I do this?
We roll together to Mamiche and get croissants. Jules has had one every single morning of the trip, and she calls this the best one yet. I go to some nerd stores. They're all lined up next to each other like they're district for dweebs. It makes things convenient for me. I look at a bunch of old video games with different box art. I think the star is that I'm not the kind of guy who has to collect this kind of thing, because I would want to buy all 8 copies of the Super Famicom version of Donkey Kong Country. We reconvene in Luxembourg Gardens where I eat a hot dog. It's a little cloudy. Our trip is winding down. It's making me sad, thinking about the responsibilities I must face when I get home and have to get right back to work. We splurge on a nice dinner where we eat some sea snails. It's pretty good. Tonight we're headed for a cool bar in another neighborhood, and it requires a few train connections. We wind up getting lost in the tunnels. It's a bit like when you're on a long car ride and you roll through a storm, and you come out the other side feeling like you've crossed some sort of threshold. You can't quite place it, but things are a little different now. Eventually we get spat out into the neighborhood and it's quiet. We go to the bar we were headed for and it's completely dead. After turning around, we see a group of locals standing outside smoking in the otherwise quiet neighborhood. We wander in. It's a neighborhood bar. And we get the immediate impression everyone there knows each other. One sole bartender is running things, and she makes us the most punishingly strong whiskey gingers I've ever had. She hands us an iPad and orders us to DJ, and we wind up chatting with her a lot. I loosen up and tell her a bit about some things troubling me back home. She yells a lot about her brother and cues up something for us in particular. It feels a bit like we're one-off guest characters in this place's mythology. Guest stars on Cheers. As John Denver washes over me, I text a friend about a major life change I plan on following through with when I get back. This French woman yelling at me inspired me. I eventually followed through. It's closing time at this bar, and the bartender is doing the European cheek kiss thing to every single patron on the way out. It's a technicality, but this got Kim and I's most looming scavenger hunt items cleared out. We get McDonald's and goof off in the hostel some more. I'm happy I came here. None of us are too excited to part ways. We share a final snack before Jules and I head back to the airport, and Kim heads for a train station for the next leg of her journey. Throughout this whole trip, Jules has been keeping a visual diary. An inscription of runic symbols that signify the goings-on of each day respectfully. Some of it makes sense if you know what happened that day, and some of it doesn't. The account of the night out in Paris was inspired by these. We've been sitting down in dramatically important locations, and she draws them. I look back on them now and I know what's going on in some of them. I wonder if I knew more when they were fresh, and some of it slipped out of my mind like sand between my fingers. Looking back on them now, months later, they still carry the kinetic energy of the moment. When I was in college, I filmed a lot of stuff with my camera. You wind up collecting a lot of it and don't really know what to do with it. You watch it and remember some of those old times. People you hung out with you don't see as much or aren't around anymore. It feels a little self-serving. Hearing yourself speak can be painful, especially when it's a past self. But when you have a hard drive failure and some of it disappears forever, you realize how valuable it is, even if it's only valuable to you. The brain doesn't hold on to every single memory. Some of it's embarrassing and stuff you grew out of, but I think you gotta exhume the bones sometimes. Open up some files, vacation videos, journal drawings, diary entries. Remember the things that led you to feel certain ways or make certain decisions. Interrogate if you are a weird guy. Take a look at skeletons of lives past. Like it or not, we're all full of bones. Even if they make you think of death, we'll be piles of bones eventually. You gotta honor the beasts that came before. Honor the ones who are still walking the earth. Make a towering monolith feature-length video as a monument to friendship and adventure. Don't be afraid to walk around for a long time. Don't be afraid to look back. Maybe don't touch the bones. But every once in a while, you should look at the bones.
Country roads take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia.